They told her she was nothing, so she became a ghost in their machine. Mariah Lewis was a whisper in the halls of TechCore Industries, a silent shape mopping floors of polished concrete, while the brilliant minds of tomorrow scrolled through code on glass walls. At 34, her movements were economical, her gaze perpetually downcast. To the coder who spilled his latte, to the executive who never looked up for his phone, she was furniture, a human-shaped void. They didn't see the woman who once built the predictive algorithms that streamlined their supply chain. They didn't see the data analyst they had systematically blacklisted and broken after she reported Ethan Vale's unwanted advances. They only saw the janitor, and that was their first fatal mistake. She pushed her cart, the squeak of its wheels a lonely rhythm in the billion-dollar silence. Her rag wiped away fingerprints from panoramic windows overlooking the San Francisco skyline, the very windows she used to look out of, dreaming of her own startup. Now, she saw only reflections of what she had lost. But the fire wasn't extinguished. It was banked, burning low and hot beneath the surface of her quiet compliance. She wasn't just cleaning their mess. She was conducting a silent audit. Every night, as she emptied trash bins filled with the confetti of failed projects and arrogant ambition, she was piecing together a new algorithm, one for revenge. Her mop cart, with its hidden compartments and a flash drive hub disguised as a simple battery pack, was her mobile command center. She was back for a reason, and her invisibility was her greatest weapon. They had tried to erase her. Now, she would return the favor. The most damning secrets are always spoken when the help is in the room. It was 2:17 a.m. when the universe handed her the key. Mariah was buffing the floor outside the Zen Den, a soundproof lounge reserved for C-suite. The door was ajar, and the voices of Ethan Vale and the CFO slithered out, thick with expensive scotch and unchecked power. They weren't talking about IPOs or innovation. They were laughing. Another billion scrub clean, the CFO chuckled. The campaign trail won't pave itself. Just another digital transaction vanished into the ether. Ethan's voice was a smug purr. The beauty of it is, the regulators are looking for a vault. We're using a sieve. They'll never see the water slipping through. Mariah's blood ran cold, then hot. Campaign money. Shell companies. A digital laundry service for dirty political cash. All running on TechCore's pristine servers. She didn't gasp. She didn't flinch. The invisible woman simply kept polishing the floor, her movements a perfect pantomime of ignorance, while her mind, the mind they had discarded, connected the dots with terrifying speed. That night, her work began in earnest. While her wet floor sign stood guard, she accessed dormant server backups, her custom-built code slipping past firewalls like a ghost. She used a microphone embedded in her ID lanyard to capture their late-night boasts. Every deleted file, every encrypted transaction she managed to salvage, was another brick in the case she was building. Her mop cart wasn't just a cleaning station. It was the beating heart of a digital revolution. And she was its silent, furious architect. He thought he was a wolf hunting a sheep. He never considered she might be a dragon. Ethan Vale's harassment escalated from neglectful to predatory. He started leaving crumpled printouts of her old, triumphant company headshot on the floor for her to clean up. "Look how far you've fallen, Mariah," he'd sneer, his Italian loafers planted firmly in her path. From a rising star to this, some people just aren't built for the pressure. I suppose. Maybe you should have stayed in your own lane. The racist undertones, the condescending pity. It was all a game to him, a way to assert his dominance over the one person who had ever dared to say no to him. What he didn't see was the tiny camera lens and the button of her uniform, recording his every sneer. What he didn't know was that every piece of evidence she gathered, the server logs, the financial trails, his own vile words, was being encrypted and uploaded to a secure server, a digital fortress managed by her one contact, Horizon. Horizon was her lifeline, a faceless, nameless data expert working with the federal authorities. Through encrypted text channels, Horizon provided guidance, verified her findings, and gave her the strength to endure Ethan's taunts. "Patience, Phoenix," the messages would read. "The higher he builds his pyre, the brighter he will burn." Mariah would read the words on her cracked phone screen in the break room, a faint, cold smile touching her lips. Ethan Vale was circling, believing himself the predator. He was too blind to see he was dancing on a trapdoor, and she was the one about to pull the lever. The hunter became the prey in the space between one heartbeat and the next. He cornered her in the server room, a cavernous space humming with the cold energy of 1,000,000,000,000 calculations. "I know you're snooping, Maria," he spat, getting in her face, the scent of his cologne a cloying weapon. "I've seen the digital footprints. You think just because you can clean a floor, you can clean data? I'm going to destroy what's left of your life. You'll never work in this city again." He reached for her, his intent clear in his eyes. And then a new voice cut to the mechanical hum, calm and lethally familiar. "I believe you have that backwards, Ethan." From the shadows between the server racks, a man stepped forward, lowering his hoodie. The federal badge in his hand gleamed under the sterile lights. Mariah didn't look surprised. She looked relieved. Ethan stared, his brain refusing to process the image. It was Daniel Lewis, Mariah's former mentor. The husband everyone believed had left her after her breakdown. The man Ethan himself had fired for being too loyal. Daniel's gaze was fixed on Ethan, but his words were for her. "The package is secure. Horizon." The name hung in the air, sucking all the sound from the room. Horizon wasn't a stranger. He was a man who had loved her, trained her, and who, for the last 2 years, had been her partner in this deep cover operation. Working from the inside of the federal investigation they had initiated together the day she was forced out. They hadn't been broken. They had been building a case. Ethan Vale, the brilliant COO, finally understood. He hadn't been tormenting a victim. He'd been taunting a federal agent. The fall of an empire sounds like 1,000 cell doors slamming shut at once. The silence of the night was shattered by the synchronized strike of a dozen FBI units. Agents in tactical vests flooded the lobby, their movements precise and overwhelming. But they weren't there to smash down doors. They were there to collect. Guided by the digital map Mariah and Daniel had built, they went straight to the encrypted servers, plugging in specialized hardware that began downloading the entire corrupt history of TechCore. Every offshore transaction, every laundered dollar, every deleted file that Mariah had resurrected, it all flowed into federal evidence lockers. Ethan, in a blind panic, tried to flee through the underground garage, his sports car screeching toward the exit. But the gates were sealed. A news van was already parked across the street, a camera crew live-streaming the chaos. His face, contorted in fear, was already being beamed across the nation. On the screen of the van's monitor, a news anchor's voice was grave. "Breaking tonight, a massive federal raid at TechCore Industries. Our sources confirm a whistleblower, a company janitor, has exposed a billion-dollar political money laundering scheme, leading to the imminent arrest of top executives." He slumped against the steering wheel, the wail of sirens growing closer. The empire of glass and greed had been brought down by the one person they thought was beneath their notice. The crystal floor they walked on had just shattered beneath their feet. The woman they tried to erase now has a permanent place in history. Months later, Mariah Lewis stood before a congressional committee, back straight, her voice clear and resonant in the hallowed hall. There was no trace of the invisible woman left. The President of the United States fastened the National Ethics Medal around her neck. The flash of cameras was a far cry from the dim, lonely halls she had haunted. When she spoke, her words were not of bitterness, but profound, unassailable truth. "They called me invisible," she said, her gaze sweeping over the powerful men and women before her. "But invisibility gave me access. Access gave me power. You look down on the people who clean your offices, who serve your food, who drive your cars. You think because you don't see us, we don't see you. And that arrogance is a blind spot a mile wide." Her story, the Crystal Floor Protocol, was already being printed in federal training manuals, a masterclass in forensic accounting and human intelligence. The once invisible janitor had not just gotten revenge. She had engineered a systemic correction. She proved, for anyone who would ever feel small or overlooked, that the most dangerous person in the room is not the one shouting orders, but the one quietly, patiently, watching and learning, waiting for the perfect moment to bring the entire corrupt temple down on the heads of the giants.